Hello students, in this video we are going to be talking about what we refer to in the writing business as the rhetorical situation. You'll see from chapter 2 that it's basically being reader focused in how you communicate. So I'm going to kind of go through some parts of chapter 2 and then we'll discuss the rhetorical situation a little bit more in depth. So in chapter 2, you should make sure that you understand how to profile document readers, how to understand who your audiences are, whether they're primary, secondary, tertiary, or gatekeepers, techniques for identifying readers' needs, values, and attitudes, and then how physical, economic, political, ethical, cultural things influence the ways that readers will understand and interpret your text. So the first thing that the chapter talks about is the idea that in the business world we don't read every word. We don't want to read more information than we absolutely need. So you need to figure out what exactly your readers have to know, and then you need to present it in a way that they can quickly find out what it is, what the information is. It's kind of like if you go on Reddit a lot, there's lots of posts that are very long and people write TLDR, meaning too long, didn't read. That's what's going to happen if you write a really long email, or if you write a 3-page memo, or your letter is too lengthy. People aren't going to read it. So it's about understanding what they need and then how to present that information. So if you think about your reader as being a rater for information, that should help you a little bit more. Something you do need to be aware of is when we talk about profiling, doing it in ethical ways. You don't want to stereotype people, but in understanding your audience, you can better help them understand what you're trying to communicate, and you can better meet their needs. The next parts of the chapter go over how to identify your readers, how to figure out what role they play in the situation. There's also these kind of helpful charts that help you to think about different aspects of the situation, what your audience's needs, wants, values, attitudes are, the different contexts that might appear in a business setting. And then there's a very helpful section on global and transcultural communication. You need to remember that in certain cultures some things are acceptable, and in certain cultures other things are not acceptable. For example, in the American business world, you probably wouldn't spend time talking about the weather, but you may ask someone how their family is. In other cultures, perhaps the Japanese culture, for example, asking them personal questions would be seen as very rude. But if you didn't inquire about the weather in a short correspondence, they might think that you're being rude and that you don't care. So there's certain things that you want to make sure that you're doing when you're communicating in different cultures. So if we apply that to writing, remember on page 29 there's something helpful. Cultures can even impact the way you organize a document. It says in some cultures, documents and meetings often start off with statements of appreciation to build common bonds. In Arabic cultures, documents rely on repetition to make their points. But to us, in the Western world, this repetition might seem too much, and we're not going to respond well to that. So that's very interesting ways that being culturally aware can impact organization, style, design, all sorts of things. So at the very end it gives us some ideas on what to do to help us understand how to communicate better. Listen carefully. Be polite. And I think understanding what would be considered polite in that culture, which means that you need to research the target culture. Avoiding humor is a good idea, especially because some jokes don't translate very well. And then talking to other colleagues and making sure that you are communicating and organizing your writing in ways that will be helpful to your audience. So that's with more of a business spin. If I go back to kind of core things in writing that you might remember from first year writing, I want to talk about what's called the rhetorical situation. Because understanding and being able to analyze rhetorical situations is how we are going to create audience-focused, organized writing. The term rhetorical situation just means the circumstances, the context of any type of communication. And if you're confused about this word rhetorical or rhetoric, rhetoric is just an awareness of the choices that we make when we communicate. And it's important to understand this rhetorical situation. It's going to have an impact on personal relationships, business relationships, even international peace treaties. We need to be able to understand other people's perspectives and then respond to those perspectives in an effective way. So the rhetorical situation, I'm going to make it a little bit more simplified. The book has all those charts and all of those tertiary, secondary readers. I'm going to make it very simple. So the first thing in the rhetorical situation is your purpose in writing. You must have that nailed down before you try to do anything else. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to persuade someone? Are you trying to inform someone? Okay, you need to know what you are doing before you can sit down and actually do it, create it. Then here we would have the writer. Although as we get into different types of communication, it could be writer, communicator, could even be the creator if you're making some type of multimedia presentation. This would be you. This is you in the situation. And then you have your audience and what their needs are going to be, what their values are going to be, and these three things are going to impact everything that you do and everything that you say in the business world. You want to make sure that your purpose is always clear, and then that you follow through with your purpose as you're communicating and writing. Something else to add into the rhetorical situation that sometimes teachers will talk about is the medium. This could be whether it's an email or a conference call, a written document, even a physical document like a printed out memo versus an electronic document like an email. All of these things contribute to the situation or the context, and you need to understand each piece of this rhetorical situation before beginning your drafting process, because you need to have all of this figured out before you actually start writing. So if I ever refer to the rhetorical situation, this is what I'm talking about, and this is going to be foundational knowledge because you absolutely have to think about this before you move on to the other types of thinking and drafting.